Hello everybody, I hope you all are well, keeping safe as much as is possible. I just want to share with you this evening on the matter of grieving. We've been through so much this year. Almost everybody that I know now knows at least one person who has died from COVID. And it really is, it's disheartening because you have your friends and they go and you are in shock. Grief has many stages, and we go through them at one time or another. That is not something that you get accustomed to, even when you expect it, because you have a loved one and the person is ill and you know that they're going to die. They're at a point where they won't recover unless they get a miracle straight out of heaven. But sometimes, more often than not, they don't recover. And although you knew they were going to die, the pain wasn't any less when the person went. You're just so hurt, It hurts a lot to lose a loved one because it is so final. There isn't anything that you can do, no matter how much you loved that person. You can't bring them back. All you have to live with now are memories, and hopefully those are good memories. I lost my brother in 2018, my mother-in-law, my sister-in-law, and my cousin. And let me tell you something, that year was a grievous year because I lost them, and when they died, I never expected any of them to die. My brother I hadn't seen in like about 16 years, and one day my husband said to me, when last have you heard from your brother, because he's on his mind and stuff like that. And they hadn't met. So I said to him that I had spoken with him like a couple of weeks before, and I kept calling and I wasn't getting through, and he insisted that I should call. Well, I called, and his wife answered, and it said to her, I'm coming to visit like on the 24th of April. And she said, if you can come before, come, because he's kind of weak. And I never hesitated. I asked my girlfriend to book a trip for me, and she did. That was a Friday, and I was out of here early Sunday morning. I got into New York City at about 6:30 in the morning. My niece picked me up, and when I got into the house in the morning and I said, hey bro, I'm here, and he said, hey sis, I'm glad you're here, and he started to cry. And I was just so glad I went, because I spent 2 weeks with them, and I was due to come back home the Monday, and he died the Friday morning, and I was devastated. But I couldn't even grieve at the time because everybody else was in turmoil. One of his daughters, she was on her way to see him, and she didn't get a chance to see him because they wouldn't release her, and by the time they released her and she was on her way and she got there, he had passed. And let me tell you something, in all of my how many years, I've never seen anybody cry like that, ever. She was beside herself to the point where one time I thought she was going to lose her mind. I got scared because she was just so devastated. She just never got to see her father alive before he actually passed. And the grief at that time was palpable. And then I think it was, no, my mother-in-law passed before that. And then my cousin, she had been ailing. She fell ill and she had gone to the hospital, and she spent maybe a week or two in the hospital, and she came back and she was doing well. And one Sunday afternoon, I felt like calling her because I didn't get a chance to see her while she was in the hospital because she was in ICU. And because I was so far away from them, by the time I was able to make arrangements, they had already decided who would have been able to see her, and they weren't changing the people's names on the list. So I wasn't able to see her. I could only ask and get information, and they would fill me in as to how she was doing. And so after she came back home, and I thought it was, she had rested and she'd be able to take calls and stuff like that. One Sunday evening, I decided to call her. I called and I didn't get her. I called again and I didn't get her. And I said, all right, I'm going to call later. Well, I got busy the afternoon and I clean forgot that I had promised to call her. And I was at work the Monday. I was in a meeting, a workers meeting, and we had a break for lunch. And I was there giving love a pea soup, having a wonderful time chatting and laughing. And then I was looking for Bestie, and somebody said she had gone to the doctor. And I'm saying, how she went to the doctor, and she didn't tell me. The next thing I know, they sent her home, that her pressure was high. And I thought that was really strange because she doesn't have problems with her pressure or anything like that. But maybe she was just tired. Anyways, I came back and was sitting there. So I picked up my phone to call now to see how she was doing. And when I picked up the phone, I saw that my cousin had called me. And I found it strange. She had actually called twice. And I'm saying, who is it that Sandra is calling me? She doesn't normally call. She would send me a text. But anyway, she called. And I missed both calls. I went outside and I called her twice. And I didn't get her. So I came back inside. And just as I was about to call Bestie, I saw a text. And it said, my cousin had passed. Well, people, you know something? I just lost it because I was so upset. I was angry. I was upset. I was everything because you know what? I had called the day before and I didn't get a chance to talk with her. And I was just so distressed. And I just ran out of there. I screamed and I don't know what I did with the phone. I couldn't see where I was going because tears filled my eyes and I was just walking. And I know that two people grabbed a hold of me and they were taking me someplace and kept asking, what is the matter with me? I couldn't speak. I was too overcome. And somebody took the phone and called my daughter and said, what is the matter with your mother? What is the matter with your mother? I mean, she didn't know either, but she heard me crying in the background and she said to the person, somebody's dead. And they asked her how she knew and she said, that's how mommy sounds when somebody's dead. And she said to the person, just give her some water, calm her down and wait. That is what happened. I lost my cousin. And then my sister-in-law, and that was just so sudden. My niece just called and said her mother had died. I said, what do you mean your mother has died? She said she went to the shop and she just fell down and died. I tell you, I lost my aunt about a month ago. I think she was buried last week. I called her twice and I didn't get her. And I wrote her a message and I said, what happened, my pretty auntie? Why are you not talking to me? And I didn't send the message. I don't know what happened, what distracted me. I never sent the message. It didn't go at all. I was distraught. Some years ago, I went to chapel for chapel session worship. And I was on a high. I came back and I was sitting at my desk and my brother called and I picked up the phone and I said to him, to what do I owe the privilege of this call? And he said, we have dead. And I said, dead? Who is dead? And he said to me, no, the boy. So I said, which boy? And he said his son's name. And I said, how you mean? What have you? How you mean him dead? And he said, boy, chop off him neck. Listen to me. maybe it's only the people who were there that would have been able to explain to you, because I thought that the life was being squeezed out of me. I just could not deal with it. I felt like somebody had a vice grip squeezing out the life out of my heart, and I had to just bawl. I just bawled for a long time until I was able to come to. I'm saying all of that to say that we're losing friends, we're losing loved ones, or relatives, or parents, or brothers, or sisters, or cousins during this time. And the grief, it's painful. It is very painful. And sometimes we don't know what to do with ourselves. But cry. It is okay for you to cry, you know? Because when you cry, you're releasing the tension and you're helping yourself. Don't pretend that you're not hurting. And if somebody asks you how you feel, don't tell them you're fine, because you're not fine. You just lost somebody and you're hurting. So when you cry, it is cathartic and it is fine. Give yourself permission to grieve. It comes in stages. Sometimes you get angry, really angry, because you never expected to lose this person and they're gone. Sometimes you're in denial. You can't believe it. You question it. You say, me can't believe. Yeah. And sometimes you're in shock because somebody calls and just tells you, and you go into shock. That thing happens, you know. And then sometimes you start to bargain, and you're bargaining with God. So and so and so, I would do this, and if you can't bring back the person. And after a while, you start to accept it. But even though you accept the fact that the person is gone, it doesn't make a difference. You're still going to hurt, you know. So give yourself permission to grieve. Cry when you want to. Surround yourself with people who will be there to support you, that you can talk to. Talk about the person. Don't be afraid to talk about the person, you know, because you have good memories. And if in the middle of a conversation you feel like crying, just cry, bawl. If it comes to that, you are releasing yourself from all of that. And don't allow anybody to cause you to feel guilty. People grieve in different ways and over different periods of time. It might take you a long time to get over the death of a loved one, whereas other persons might take a shorter time, you know. But don't feel guilty about it. Just grieve if you have to. You have to call upon God. Sometimes you have to call upon God for the strength, because some days are better than some. Some days you don't feel like you're going to be able to make it at all. It just doesn't seem like you can go on, because this person was always there, and you never looked ahead and thought that this person wasn't going to be there. You just thought that this person was always going to be there, especially if it's your parents. It's like you don't expect your parents to die, or your partner, or your child, you know. And so you fall into a situation, you get depressed, you're so distressed, you can't eat your food, you can't sleep, you don't want to talk to anybody, you feel like you're going to lose your mind, you want to tear out your hair. All of these are normal things. Don't feel as though something is wrong with you. There's absolutely nothing wrong with you. It's your grieving process. So take your time. If you're all right today and you're not okay tomorrow, it's no problem. Just ensure that you have good support. People who are there to comfort you, to talk with you, and to take you through. You know what I always noticed? Whenever somebody loses a loved one, people come to your house and they spend all the time with you, and they're there, and right up to the funeral, and right after the funeral, everybody just disappears. And let me tell you something, this is the time that they really need you. because they're left alone. This is the time that they really need you after they've buried their loved ones. You know, there is something about the time prior to the funeral. It's as though maybe you're thinking that the person is still around, or you might just see them walk through the door. But you see, after you've gone and witnessed the body placed in the hole, and you see that that is final, it is final, and that is why some people break down at the graveside and they can't be controlled, because it is so final. It's the last of it. They can't handle it. So I'm saying that after the funeral, that is when people need to rally around people, especially people who don't have their children at home. It was just their partner, and then the partner has gone and they're left alone. They need company now more than ever. You check in on them to find out how they're doing, if they're okay, if they need anything to be done, if they need some company. And sometimes, listen to me, people, when people lose a loved one, don't go telling them that God knows best and all these things. Don't do it. Don't do it, because you're just hurting, and when people hurting, then sometimes not rational, and you telling them these things not will help them. You know, just go sit with somebody. You don't have to say anything. You don't have to say anything. I remember my very good friend, when she lost her husband. I was on my bed lying down. I just finished cooking and I was tired, and I went upstairs and was lying down in my bed, and my phone rang, and my godson said to me, "You know, here's them kill me, sir." And I said, "What?" He said, "Yes, gunmen went around there and killed him." And I nearly passed out. I said, "My God, let me tell you something." I jumped off the bed and put on my clothes and got there before the police, I think. Because as a matter of fact, when the radio, the TV was interviewing, they questioned me as well and wondered how I got there so quickly from where I was coming from. Listen to me. I didn't know what to say. I just went there and stood by her and just rub her back on her head and all the rest of it. And I don't even remember how it went. But I didn't know what to say. I just made myself available. Sometimes this is what we need to do to help people who are grieving. Just make yourself available. Don't say anything. You don't need to say anything. Take something with you. A pot of soup, some fruits, whatever it is. Just go and sit there and just be there for the person. I trust that as we grieve during this very difficult period, that we will find the support that we need, and we will remember that God is our keeper, and that He can help us to bear the pain, and He will give us a peace that passes all understanding, because during these times you need the peace. When you've lost a loved one, you really need the peace. I pray that as you listen, that you will find some strength, you know, some peace, something that will help you through if you've experienced a loss. I pray that God will bless you. And I want you to know that wherever you are, my heart goes out to you, and I love you, and I'm praying for you even when I don't know you. I just ask God to comfort those who are grieving, and I know that He hears my prayer, and He knows the people who are grieving, and He sends them peace and comfort. I trust that you will be blessed. Have a wonderful evening. Thank you for listening, and please remember to subscribe, to share, and to hit the notification bell so that you'll know when I've posted a new video. Have a wonderful evening.